At the core of SwiftUI lies its three-step layout process. First, the parent proposes a size to its child. Second, based on that information, the child chooses its own size and the parent must respect that size. And third, the parent positions the child in its coordinate space. Now, these three steps sound so trivial, you're probably wondering why I'm starting out mentioning something that's just so straightforward. But the simple truth is that this simple process unlocks a huge amount of power. And the more you understand it, the more you'll be able to get SwiftUI doing exactly what you want. Now, the key to this power lies in answering a fairly simple question. What is the parent view in the following code? Now, if I say there is a VStack text with hello world and a frame width 300, height 100, and then we'll do image system name person, like that. Now, when you are learning SwiftUI, the answer, I think, to what is the parent view seems obvious. If I asked a learner, a beginner, what is the parent of this text view, they would probably answer, it's the VStack. And honestly, that's a perfectly fine answer. I wouldn't correct a beginner who gave that answer. It's fine. It feels natural. It fits with the hierarchy we can see when our code runs, but it's also wrong. And once you have sufficient experience of SwiftUI, it's important to understand why the answer is wrong, and more importantly, of course, what actually is the right answer. Let's start simple. When we use any modifier in SwiftUI, we are most of the time creating a new view that wraps the original view to add some extra behavior or styling. So for example, by itself, that is just one view, just a text view. But if I said add the frame width 300, height 100, that is now two views. And this makes sense if you break it down and keep this three-step layout process in your mind. This text view cannot position itself. It can't do it. That's the job of the parent. And so the only way for this hello world text like that can be aligned center is for its parent, which is this frame here, to be that 300 by 100 container. This is also why we can stack many modifiers again and again to create more complicated effects. We aren't modifying the original view each time, we're wrapping up new ones that get bigger and bigger with more behaviors. Now, once you understand this process, the whole way of making new views of modifiers, so much of the rest of SwiftUI just becomes clear. It makes sense because I regularly actually encourage folks to add in the old on tap gesture, If I had a text hello world frame, whatever, on tap gesture here with print type of self.body, I do this all the time with folks. Run this code back, try it out, and see what it does. In the simulator, it's hello world. When you tap it, you're going to see a bunch of stuff down here, and you'll see modify content, text frame layout, add gesture modifier, and so forth. And when you do that for more complex views, you're going to see this modified content type appear a lot. Not exactly once for every modifier, because again, not all modifiers create new views, but a lot of the time. And this modified content, is itself a struct that conforms to the view protocol, and you can look it up with Open Quickly. If you aren't familiar with Open Quickly, you press Shift Command O, and you can jump through any of your code in your project or any of Apple's APIs in one go. In this case, I'll just type modified content, and there we go. Boom, that pops up. Enter select. You'll jump straight to it, hopefully in the source code. And you'll see that modified content is a struct with a content and a modifier behind it. And if you scroll further down, you'll eventually see, hopefully down here, blah, 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 blah. It's equatable. Boom. Modified content is a view, where its content is a view, and its modifier is some kind of view modifier. This is not a secret. It's not magic, right? This is open for us to use if you want to. You can go ahead and try out using modified content directly if you want to. Just make a custom modifier. It's public API for us to use. We could say there's a custom font modifier, and its body method, I'll say, just send it by our content with a font of large title, for example. Just large title, whatever you have. And now we can use that straight away. We could say, I want to have, let's get rid of all this junk and have text hello world. But around that, we'll place our modified content view with content of text hello world and a modifier of our custom font, like that. And you'll see in the preview being, well, boom, hello world appears in large text. And that's obviously a lot more wordy than normal SwiftUI code would write. But what I want you to understand is that's identical to if we'd actually made the modifier ourselves. We'd said something like, text hello world dot modifier custom font, like that. And then on tap gesture, whatever you want to, type of self.body. This is doing the same thing. Add the modifier, and then of course we'll add what it does behind the scenes, and you'll see, well, it's a modified content with text and custom font, just like we had before. And this is what SwiftUI's result builder approach is doing for us. It repeatedly transforms our modifiers into this modified content view, nesting them again and again and again to get exactly the right result. This is all done at compile time rather than runtime, and it means the actual underlying type of our view is the same. Modified content, text, custom font. It's unchanged. And so, when we write code like text hello world, frame, width 300, height 100, it creates the original text view, plus a new modified content around it that happens to contain this fixed frame instruction. And this text thing here still has its original frame, the original size it wanted to have and wants to work with, but now there's a second frame around it, which is larger. And if you want to, you can see that the original frame's still there. You could say, I want my frame to be 300 by 100 with an alignment of dot bottom trailing. And it'll sit now in the bottom corner of that 300 by 300 view. And if you think about it, the only way that text can be aligned to the bottom trailing edge is if it still remembers its original size. This is my box. I'll move that box around inside the larger box. And so our text view, this thing here, hello world, has its own frame. And no amount of futzing from us can ever force that text to extend beyond the bounds of its natural width and height of its content. But by applying this frame modifier around it, we're making a new modified content view around the text that takes up more space. And it's not strictly a frame view, it's a modified content view, but I think it's helpful to say the frame view or something similar like that.